attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the Architectural Board of Review meeting for November 30th of 2020. And if we're ready, let's start with our roll call.
All right, thank you. This is Mary, Commission Secretary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call. We have Chair Moore,
If somebody from staff to do the roll call vote, or not vote, but just roll call.
yes, this is Mary. I will take the roll
Great.
call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Here.
Vice Chair Six,
Here.
Board Member Black,
Here.
Board Member Cunningham,
Here.
Board Member Olson,
Here.
and Board Member Whalen.
Here.
And Board Member Watkins is absent today. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And moving on to, I believe, public comment. Is there anybody in the public who would like to address the board on a subject within our jurisdiction and not on today's agenda? You can follow the instructions on the screen here.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I don't see anybody who's logged into the webinar for public comment at this time.
And this is Mary. I just wanted to state that we did receive written correspondence from Richard Clausen and Diane Jones, and they're regarding projects on the November 16th agenda, I believe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we saw those emails earlier today. Okay, and then moving on to other general business. We have approval of the minutes from November 16th. I guess first, before we do that, we'll close public comment and then go on to approval of the minutes.
I would make that motion for approval.
I move we accept as written.
Okay, I think Richard beat you to the punch there, Leon. Would you like to second that motion?
I would.
Okay. Any discussion? None. Okay. Let's have our vote.
All right, this is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, and then the consent calendar for November 23rd.
Will we accept as presented?
Okay. First by Mr. Olson,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Six. Any discussion about those minutes? Nope. Okay, let's take our vote.
All right, we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, then I believe today, the 30th, the consent calendar was canceled. Is that correct? Or did it happen?
That is correct, Chair Moore.
So there are nothing to approve. Okay, and then next announcements. I believe we have one announcement from planning staff.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. My name is Jessica Metzger, and I am the project planner, for those of you that I don't know, for the average unit size density incentive program amendments. And I'm coming to you today to put something in your mind for the next meeting that you have. We are requesting as staff that we have 2 members from the ABR to be part of a working group on the creation of the floor to lot area ratios for the change to the AUD program from regulating by density. So we'll be back before your board the next meeting to request 2 members volunteer for this committee. The group will be comprised of appointees from your board as well as the HLC and Planning Commission. And we anticipate 2 to 4 meetings total lasting about an hour each. So it's not a huge time commitment, but we do want to convene the group over the next 2 months. So in the email that you received from me today is my email address. And if you have any questions at all about this, in the next 2 weeks, I'd be happy to set up time to talk to you about it. And due to the fact that you have such a full meeting, that concludes my announcement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will all be thinking about that, I'm sure. Okay, any other announcements, requests by applicants, future agenda
Yes.
items?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is Leon. I need to recuse myself from the 5th item, 29 South Milpas. Mr. Poirier and I are associated with another project.
Okay,
Chair Moore, I need to leave the meeting after item 2. Items 3, 4, and 5 are all conflicts for me with regard to contracts with the applicants.
okay, so it appears we will still have a quorum for all items.
Chair
Okay.
Moore,
Yes.
Chair Moore, one additional announcement. Board Member Watkins will not be in attendance at today's meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. Any subcommittee reports? No? Okay. Then that wraps up general business. And if we have an applicant for the first item, we can go to that now.
I am here,
Great.
Katie Moses.
All right, excellent. If we could have the project description up, please. There we go. All right. Next, there we go. Okay, so this is item number 1, 635 East Gutierrez Street. This is a proposal to construct a new 1-story, approximately 9,260 square foot energy storage facility on a 14,713 square foot lot at the corner of East Gutierrez and North Quarantina Streets. A loading and turnaround area is proposed, but no vehicular parking spaces are proposed. Grading quantities include 6 cubic yards of cut and just over 1,000 cubic yards of fill. The project includes demolition of approximately 6,912 square feet of existing structures. The Planning Commission approved a development plan and conditional use permit on September 17th of this year. Project design approval is requested. Project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the urban design guidelines, the outdoor lighting design guidelines, and the Haley Milpas design manual. And it was last here on April 20th of this year. If possible, could we put the our motion from the previous meeting on the screen before we jump into it? Great. Let's see. There it is. Okay, so the motion was continue indefinitely to the Planning Commission with comments. The board feels the general mass bulk and scale is appropriate. Study the landscape plan. Street trees shall match the designation of the street tree master plan. The area behind the building and in the driveway shall be screened by a fencing gate. The fence should be set back sufficient to allow additional large trees and landscaping in front of the fence. The roof equipment should be not visible from the street. The board is concerned that the glazing will be opaque. Can we move the timer out of the way there a second? Thank you. Oop, there it goes. Provide samples of possible glazing or any films for covering the glazing. And then we went and made a preliminary compatibility analysis. Okay. Well, welcome back. If you could introduce yourself, and then before we jump in, we have a 15-minute timer there that'll be on screen. And if you could keep your presentation to that timeline, that'll be helpful so we can stay on track. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Katie Moses. I'm an architect with RM Design Group, and we are working on this battery storage project. We presented this to you guys for conceptual, as you noted, April. I believe it was the first post-COVID ABR meeting. And to keep it shorter, since I know you guys have a packed agenda, I thought I'd just walk through your comments and what has changed. So I think the first one was with the landscape plan, and our landscape architect reached out to Street Tree Division, and we changed our street trees based on his recommendations. So I think it's the last sheet on the set. If you could, I think it's sheet 17, L1.
Hi there, and then this is for staff. Can we start the timer?
All right, in the top right-hand side, I believe it's the something paperback tree that was based on their recommendation for the street trees. And then comment number 2, the driveway, we have screened it with a fence. We proposed an aluminum wood look fence with some black posts, and that's probably best shown on the elevations. So if you could go back to the A3 sheets. It's showing right there. You can stop it there. Oh. Yes, go one more. Nope, other way. Sorry. There we go. So we've got I think it was A7 and A8 both showed it. we go. So we have a sliding gate across our driveway with the wood look fence on either side at our parking area. There is one piece of electrical equipment that will be out in front as shown in that perspective. The other item, if you go back to that A3, sorry, I had my notes wrong, A3B, I believe it is. I think we have our roof equipment dashed in right there. We have two heights of our parapet, and it's well below the higher parapet and pretty much in line with the lower parapet, but from the street level, you shouldn't be able to see any proposed roof equipment, and that includes the curb for those heights. And the final item, we submitted a photo of the glazing per our planner's recommendation. It's just a frosted glass. Due to our proximity to the property line, all of our glazing needs to be fire rated. So it's just a frosted glazing sample. I don't know if staff has a photo of that.
Can we go to the photo of that, please?
Could you help us out with what page is that up? Okay, thank you.
We submitted it separately as just a JPEG photo. So it's not in this set, unfortunately. I can run and grab it and show it to you guys, if that's easier.
Well, let's give them a moment.
Okay.
You also had your materials on a sheet. Maybe
Yes.
we could just flip to that sheet, and so we can all look at that while they're. Do you know which sheet number that is?
A9 potentially.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. In the meantime, hopefully, maybe staff can find that other photo.
Chair Moore, board members, the photo does not appear to be in the folder at our disposal here. So perhaps the best thing would be for the applicant to hold it up to the camera if possible.
Okay, I'll do it. Just give me 3 seconds.
And can we put the drawings back on the screen, please? Thank you. Might have to hold it closer than that. There we go. Okay. And that's a film that's applied.
Yeah, it's a firelight.
Okay.
So, and I believe that is all of the comments that you guys had from the last meeting. So I can turn it over to you guys for questions.
Okay, great. We will open public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board about this project? Can follow the instructions on the screen. There's a hand icon.
Chair Moore, I don't see anybody who is logged into the webinar to make public comment on this item at this time.
Okay, then we will, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mary. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we didn't get any written correspondence for this item either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close public comment and move on to questions from the board. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you. Can we go to the landscape plan, please?
Which sheet is that? Oh, there we go, L1.
Can we zoom in on the driveway, please? Okay, the question is, are you certain about the visibility triangle that's depicted on the plan? My experience has been that it's smaller than that, and I question whether there's a possibility of installing a street tree to the west of the driveway. So I would ask that the applicant clarify that with city arborist and public works, unless you have already done that. Can you answer that?
We have already gone through with the planner requiring the 12-foot or the 10 feet at our property line as far as the visibility triangle.
Okay. Well, I'll reserve the rest for comments. Next question. Why do you not have any trees in the two large planted areas west of the driveway? And I see that you've got some elements there, obviously some physical built elements, but it appears that there is sufficient room to install a couple of trees in the northwestern corner and perhaps one in the more southerly corner.
You zoom out. If you zoom out, yeah. Are you referring to the area where we have the switchgear and the transformer?
Yes.
We could potentially add another tree there, but that equipment's kind of pending some coordination with Edison that will be fairly large with a lot of underground conduits. So I think we'd prefer to leave it open for now and add another tree at a later time if there's room.
Okay. Next question. Is there no setback on the south property line? Or you are showing a small setback, but my question is whether or not there's whether or not we're meeting the setback requirement with what you're showing here.
Yes, we are adding, per the pedestrian master plan, we're adding, I believe a 6-foot sidewalk with 1 foot on our property line side at the areas that are closest to the property line.
Okay, so the long planter that I see adjacent to the building is landscaping, and then on the other side of the property line, there is a sidewalk? That's correct? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry to jump in here. I think they show in this particular plan, you have south is directly down sheet. So I think Bob was asking about the.
Oh,
the
Sorry,
setback
north-
along.
That would be the north property line then, is that correct?
Let's
Okay,
just
the
do
bottom-
direction.
Bottom edge of the site plan.
Thank you.
Oh, the bottom edge of the site plan. Got it.
Yes.
No, we don't have any setback for that side. So we're going up to the property line as close as kind of constructible. So it'll be minimal landscaping right there.
Okay, is there any access to that landscaping from the other side? Or will that just simply be planted and left to fend for itself? It doesn't look like there's enough room for any kind of maintenance to happen in that area.
Right. Right now, there is access via the neighboring property, but I don't know long-term how that would be physically accessed.
Okay. Final question, can we zoom in on the plant list, please, the tree section? Plant schedule. Okay, that's good. Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, anybody else with questions? You can
I
raise
have
your
one.
hand.
I do, as long as we're on this sheet. I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Could we zero in on the site plan again? So, a couple of questions. The green on the site plan, where is the indication of what that is?
So we haven't planted out the individual shrubs and things, but the green indicates a landscaped version of those plantings.
So where there isn't a plant, what would be ground cover then?
I assume we do about 3 inches of mulch.
So this plan seems incomplete. I was trying to where these plants are on the site plan, and I see the list of them, but I don't see where they're planted. So it seems to me that it's incomplete. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Mr.
Could you not
Olson,
hear me?
I could
Yes.
probably address
Yes.
I
that.
can hear you. Go ahead, Bob.
Typically at
Did you
this
say-
level, because we're not looking for final design approval, we're looking at, what's referred to as a preliminary landscape plan, and there would not necessarily be individual plants identified on the plan other than just larger ones like the trees. So I would expect that at our next viewing, we'll see the final, construction document style landscape plan.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely.
One more question. So on the future trash enclosure, this might be a question for staff. When it's decided to build that, would the applicant have to come back and get approval for that structure?
Thank you, Board Member Olson. Since this is still at project design approval, once it comes back for final approval, all those details need to be on the plans at that point.
Okay, so I think maybe I'm ahead of myself. So I'll save those questions for next time. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Leon, but I think elements like the trash enclosure, it says future trash enclosure, but it's really important to try and integrate those into the overall design at this level. So we'd hate to have you proceed with locking everything in and then come back and show us your trash enclosure and have it not be fully resolved and considered. So,
Right. So the,
um,
our client who's building this does not anticipate the need for a trash enclosure. We're providing trash bins interior to the building. And that would be for a future tenant later on down the road. We just wanted to ensure there was room for that programmed in.
got it. And have you checked in with the planning department about that idea of having bins in the building?
Yes, we've worked that out.
And that's acceptable. That's acceptable to them at this time?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay,
I have
Richard,
one
you had questions?
Well,
One more,
Hold on.
sorry,
Oh,
one
yeah.
more. So is it
Leanne, go
then,
ahead.
when you come back, will Edison have determined what kind of structures they need or what kind of equipment they need, which will then be on your final plans?
Yes. Ideally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Richard, go ahead.
well, along with that same discussion of the future trash enclosure, there's also on sheet A1, a four-way switch gear. Is that future or is that is also machinery that we're going to anticipate to be screened?
That is going to be a part of our project. It's similar to a look of a transformer. It's about 3 foot tall, a green box.
Okay, so there'll be two pieces of the equipment. One, the Edison box, and then this four-way switch, correct?
Yeah, there's a couple behind our fence. There's a larger switchgear, a transformer, and a UAD box.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry, it's the fire sprinkler backflow. That's also going to be out there in front.
yes, correct.
Got it, sorry. All right, thank you.
Okay, anybody else with questions? Dennis, go ahead.
Yes, Ms. Moses, I may have asked this at the previous presentation, but on the west elevation on Gutierrez Street, the awning doesn't cover all the windows. Was there a logic behind that decision?
Yes, to break it up. And we also, if there is a future tenant, it was kind of centered over an opening that worked grading wise to bring a ramp and stairway up.
You're speaking of a potential second ramp and stairway, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else with questions? No? Okay, let's go to comments. If we could have the applicant turn off your webcam so we can have Mr. Olson up. There he is. All right. Okay, who would like to start with comments?
No comment.
Okay, Mr. Cunningham, go ahead.
Okay, I would like the applicant to reconfirm the visibility triangle up at the driveway. It's been my experience that street trees can go within that triangle. The limitation is on the height of shrubs, which would preclude a driver from seeing approaching pedestrians. But I do believe that street trees can be accommodated within that triangle. So I would appreciate it if she could clarify that. And then I would like to see when the project returns, the final decision regarding the equipment in the two large planters on the left-hand side of the parking, because I think the project needs some trees in that area. I also think that the applicant needs to return with some kind of acknowledgement of an access agreement with the adjacent property owner, where there is a narrow planting strip alongside the building. If that can't be accommodated with regard to maintenance, then there is no point in landscaping it. And finally, there are 2 trees listed on the plant schedule that do not perform well in this area. Due to the marine influence, both trees are more accommodating to a desert climate and would be susceptible to what's called sooty mold in our climate. One is the Parkinsonia Desert Museum, and the other one is the Chitalpa. So I think you should consider different species, different varieties for those 2 trees. Otherwise, your client will be dealing with more frequent leaf drop than they would prefer. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Black, any comments?
No, I do agree with Mr. Cunningham, though. He makes a very good point with those particular species of trees. I would agree with those.
Okay,
That's all.
Mr. Whalen? Mr. Whalen?
Yes, it overall seems like a very fine design. I would recommend that the designer work out a cap for the parapet wall. Right now, it doesn't look very finished, and without some sort of drip edge or slope top back to the roof, that's going to result in a very, very messy wall in a short number of years. Thank you.
Okay, Richard? Any comments?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. I see, the frosted glass sample, and I see all of this glass throughout being frosted, and I think it will be very austere. I was wondering if, like the bottom light of each of these tall windows could be, and I throw this out to the rest of the board, either the bottom or the first 2, and maybe the upper ones are clear glass to, or maybe just the bottom third, and then the clear glass and the rest of the upper third to give more, I don't think it would be bad to see into this machinery, and it would certainly be less austere than totally frosted glazing. That frosted tends to be opaque if it's not lit behind. So that would be one of my concerns, but throw it out to the board for their feeling. And I'm sure that we'd be interested in seeing the full cut sheet and height and the base and so forth of this rooftop equipment to make sure it doesn't exceed expectations. Those are my comments.
Okay. And then Leon, you didn't have comments, did you?
I actually had to come up with one.
Okay.
So back to the trash enclosure. If the applicant decides not to provide drawings for the trash enclosure because they're not going to build it, I think that then the notation of the reference should be removed from the plans, because I think it's confusing for the future as to somebody, when they get ready to build this, that there might have been some agreement to do it.
Okay, or some sort of underlying ABR approval for that particular location.
Pardon the interruption. I was able to verify with the case planner for this project that they are doing their trash enclosure. It's going to be interior only, and that meets the standards for a trash enclosure.
Okay. So the notation should be removed.
That's all.
Okay, I think my only comments are if we flip to the materials board. Which I think is last sheet. right? There we go. I think we need to be specific about the stucco, what the actual finish is. It says the color, but is it a light sand finish? Is it a steel trowel? What is it? And the some of the call outs for the colors say to match midnight bronze. Is that a manufacturer's color, or where is that coming from? So I think you just need to be more specific about the actual color and manufacturer, even though the glazing. So those are my comments.
I've come up with another one.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to agree with Mr. Six that I don't think it's bad to look at the equipment. I think and I think it's that I'd like to agree that the glass should be clear. End of my comments,
Okay.
I promise.
Well, we have some time, so we can have, why don't we have a little bit of discussion about the glass? Dennis, did you have?
Yes,
something
on
you
the
wanted to
glass, I support your proposition, Richard, that some, if not all, of the glass could be transparent. When it's opaque, buildings tend to look blinded. I mean, what would really be the purpose of having a window? If you wanted to get light in there without having windows, you would take a different approach. Now, I also understood from the applicant that the building's use may change in the future, or the occupants. Perhaps at that time, the glass would be changed if it were of a more commercial use. But in general, I would say your supposition about the top 1/3 being clear is a perfectly reasonable accommodation. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have an opinion?
Mr. Chair, go ahead. I think
Well, I was just going to say my own thoughts were that I imagine there's probably some security concern or there's some concern about that, the glass being clear. But as you suggest, perhaps there's another way to go about that. Maybe it's to blinds or roller shades or something that's on the inside that makes it look a little bit more lived in and used rather than just being white, translucent or opaque glass. I think would be unfortunate to have a kind of a silent building here.
Mr.
At least
Chair?
we can, go ahead.
Maybe we should ask the applicant their concerns to find out whether clear glass or roller shades or half and half would be within their program and what their concerns thereof are.
Okay, I think we could do that. Can we have the applicant back with us?
I'm here.
Okay, great. You heard the question then?
I think we'd be okay with a third clear, 2/3 opaque. I think that would be fine. I think we're doing it frosted to hide our equipment as far as visibility. Just, I think they're big black boxes with some cords.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that knowledge, let's try and craft a motion. Now they're here for project design approval.
I think Mr. Cunningham had some very specific landscape, so if he could, and landscape's a lot more harder to pronounce than articulate architecture. So he can just
Thank you.
group the architecture with the rest of his comments.
Thank you, Mr. Six. I think this is ready for project design approval, but there are some conditions that should be met. And the first would be clarify for certain the visibility triangle of the driveway on Quarantina Street. Add trees in the open planters once the utility equipment has been resolved, the locations and dimensions of those things. Address the setback along the edge where there is narrow planting shown. Either eliminate the planting or return with an agreement with the adjacent property owner for access for maintenance. And change the two varieties of trees on the plant schedule. The one is Parkinsonia Desert Museum. I can provide you with the spelling of this, Mary, later. And also Chitalpa Tashkentensis. Let's see, change the window configuration to 2/3 translucent / opaque in the bottom 2/3 of each window. That's where glazing is proposed. And I believe that's it. I believe Mr. Olson wants to have the utility equipment structures finalized, and that should happen for sure. Also call out the plaster finish and address the cap or the top of the parapet on the building to avoid runoff down the walls. That may not be all of it, so if anybody has anything else to add, please go do so.
Okay, I'll second that motion. And just to clarify, I don't know that we are encouraging the applicant to add cap flashing to the parapet. But typically we try and do a full plaster parapet instead of a metal cap flashing.
I'm certainly amenable to that. As long as it can be done in an aesthetic manner and resolve the potential problem of the runoff.
Sure, it's certainly done all the time here in Santa Barbara. So, and then if it's okay with the maker of the motion, you mentioned the specific finish for the plaster, but we also want specific colors for all materials and cut sheets for roof equipment to verify the heights of those, so we can ensure they will be adequately screened by the parapets. Okay, and they'll be returning with full details and all of that, so we'll probably want to see them back here at full board. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
You're thinking? Okay.
Would that be an indefinite continuance to the full board for final approval?
I'd say so, yeah. Okay, any other discussion? No, okay, can we read that motion back to please?
Yes. So the motion is for project design approval and for return to the full board with the following comments. Number 1, clarify the visibility triangle at the driveway at Quarantina Street. Number 2, add trees and open planters once the utility equipment has been resolved. Number 3, address the setback along the edge where there is narrow planning, either eliminate or return with an agreement with the adjacent owner for maintenance. Number 4, change the Parkinson Desert planting and the Chitalba hashtenensis. I'm sorry, that was probably way off. Plantings. Number 5, change the window configuration to 2/3 translucent / opaque. The utility equipment structures should be finalized. Call out the plaster finishes. Provide a full plaster parapet instead of the metal flashing proposed. And provide colors for all materials. And provide cut sheets for roof equipment to verify heights and make sure they are adequately screened by parapets.
Okay, Dennis, you had. Dennis, you're still muted.
Mary, in your recitation on the glass, you said translucent or opaque. I don't think opaque was ever part of the consideration. Was it not, board members? It's either clear or translucent.
Okay, let's make the condition read translucent, not
Okay.
opaque.
And then what another edit was, I don't think that the applicant had proposed a cat flashing. So we can just amend that to say, please provide a full plastered parapet detail.
Okay.
Okay. Then if that's it, we can take our vote.
Pardon the interruption,
Oh,
Chair.
sorry, we have to do the compatibility analysis, don't we? Okay.
Okay, I'll read that. The project fully complies with all applicable city charter and municipal code requirements. Its design is consistent with design guidelines applicable to the location within the city. Its design is compatible with the desirable architectural qualities and characteristics which are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of a particular neighborhood surrounding the project. We need to go back, there you go. Size, mass, bulk, scale, height of the project are appropriate for its location and its neighborhood. The design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent federal, state, and city landmarks and other designated historic resources, including city structures of merit, sites, and natural features. The design of the project responds appropriately to established scenic public vistas, and the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping.
Okay. Now we can take our vote.
All right. This is Mary. I will go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We are running a little bit ahead of schedule. And I believe the next item is scheduled for 4:15 start. So technically we could start up at 4 if the applicant is available. So it looks like we can take a 5-minute recess.
I'm here.
Okay. Okay, sounds like the applicant is available, so we'll take a 5-minute recess and reconvene at 4. 2, which is 217 South Voluntario Street. Here for concept review. And this is a proposal for a new multifamily development using the AUD program. The project will include the demolition of existing 691 square foot, one-story dwelling unit, 421 square foot detached garage, and 85 square foot shed, and the construction of a 2,204 square foot, two-story duplex and a 2,854 square foot, two-story triplex. An existing 1,072 square foot, three-bedroom dwelling unit is proposed to remain unchanged. The project unit mix will include 4 two-bedroom units and 1 one-bedroom unit. The project will result in 6 dwelling units totaling 6,145 square feet with an average unit size of 1,024 square feet. The proposed density on this parcel will be 21 dwelling units per acre on a parcel with a general plan land use designation of medium-high density residential of 15 to 27 dwelling units per acre. There will be a total of 5 parking spaces provided in attached garages and 1 uncovered space. 2 fruit trees will be removed and new landscape, hardscape fencing, and trash enclosure is proposed. Grading will consist of 140 cubic yards of excavation and 25 cubic yards of fill. This project will address violations in the zoning information report. An open yard modification is requested to provide less than the required 15% of lot area. Okay, is there another slide? Okay. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. This project requires compliance with the project compatibility analysis, the urban design guidelines, outdoor lighting design guidelines, and requires an open yard modification. The project design approval previously granted on this project expired on 11/21 of last year. And okay, so, which means, unfortunately, we have to treat this project as brand new. So if the applicant could take that into consideration, there's probably many of the board members here probably have not seen this project before. So this will be new to them. And also if the applicant could note our timer is popping up now. And if you could limit your presentation to 15 minutes, that would be helpful. Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away.
Mark Mirando, agent for the applicant. This project received preliminary approval back in November 21st of 2016. And it received final approval on 9/11 of 2019. And basically, there's nothing on this entire project is changing, except when they were in building plan check, the preliminary design approval expired, which means that they have to comply with Title 30, which went into effect in the inland. So it changed the open yard requirements. Before they were under Title 28, and they met all the private outdoor living spaces in the 10% areas and the common areas. But when the new ordinance went through in 2017, it changed the way that open yard is calculated. So before, this private outdoor living spaces are the same, and they're the same then as they are now under the new code and the old code. Before, you could do 10% of the lot area, not including the setbacks or areas paved for motor vehicles. And now they require 15% of the area, and you have to be in a 10 by 10 minimum dimension in order to qualify for that. So this project was originally designed to have 2 common areas, even though it only was required to have 1 originally in a 15 by 15 area. So between the buildings, there was 2 15 by 15 areas. And then at the very end of the driveway, there was a big trash enclosure And when this code change, they didn't realize they could have been granted an extension to the PDA approval, but it didn't happen. So therefore they fall out of compliance. So we didn't know that you guys were looking at this entire development as not being permitted under the AUD project. It still meets all the requirements of the AUD, all transportation, zoning, building. Only thing it doesn't meet is the open yard requirement, and that's why we're required to get an open yard modification. So before, they were required to have 1,250 square feet of area for the 10%, because it's a 12,500 square foot lot, and they provided 1,501. So they actually had a surplus of 251 square feet. Under the new rules, the 15% requires 1,875 square feet. And we actually, when we had to recalculate it, we ended up with, let's see, 1,333 square feet. So we're down like 542 square feet, but the project, we redesigned the trash enclosure to come up with like another 150 square feet. We moved 3 of them. We moved the 3, what are they, recycling bins next to unit 2 on the side of it near the parking space. And then we moved the 3 up the driveway to the very end where the trash enclosure was before. So we got rid of this huge trash enclosure and moved it out of the setbacks, provided another 15 by 15 area for a common area. And it upped like 235 square feet to that of open yard. So basically we were trying to conform as much as we can and ask for a modification to provide less than the required 15%, because they got caught in plan check. And you can see along unit 2, between unit 2 and the existing house, which is unit 3, we moved 3 of the trash enclosure, well, the recycling right there. And there's a window on each side of it far away. And transportation, the fire department are okay with it. And then the other one is at the very end of the driveway, we just provided the 3 trash bins right there. And then that allows for about another 235 square feet to be counted towards the 15% to help us out to become more conforming. But we can't come up with it in the 15 by 15 area or the 10 by 10 area that's required now, because it was designed under the old code. But you can see all from unit A behind unit number 1 and number 2, those light gray areas, that's their private outdoor living spaces. And then by the common space is behind uncovered parking space number 3. And then between unit 3 and 4 is the other common space. And of course they have their private outdoor living space for the dwelling that's to stay. And then unit 4 and 6 provide their private outdoor living space on top of a deck that's, and then the other one is, well, all 3 of them are actually on a deck on units 4, 5, and 6. So we basically, all we did was redesign the trash enclosure to become more conforming to the open yard. And the trash enclosure's just same as it ever was. It's a simple little 5-foot dog-eared wood fence with gates to provide the 3 95-gallon recycling cans. And that's pretty much my presentation.
Okay. I would highly suggest that you run us through the whole project, because quite a few board members probably don't remember this project. And unfortunately, this is here for conceptual review. I understand the circumstances that have brought you here, but I think we need to see the project in its entirety. So if you could do that for us, that'd be appreciated.
Yeah, that's, well, originally it had two houses and a shed and a detached garage. And so this middle unit is the existing house and it's got a covered front porch on the street side of it. And that's what's going to remain on the project. There's a site plan, I think the very last sheet, maybe sheet 13. And this set of drawings actually has the private outdoor living space. There's the old demo plan, right? Everything gets demoed but the house in the middle. And there's a private outdoor living space right there that was originally approved. Actually, that's not the one. There's another one. This is what we're proposing. But if you go back up towards the top, you know, you've got 3 units in the front and 3 units at the back with the house in the middle, or 2 units at the front. And basically there's a driveway with garages in between, and they're 2 stories. And the first, unit 1 and unit 2 are 2 bedrooms. The main house that's existing is a 3-bedroom. Unit 4 is a 1-bedroom. Unit 5 is a 2-bedroom, and unit 6 is a 2-bedroom. This whole area is already developed with multifamily housing like this, 2 stories on just about every lot. And the lots that don't have the old style, like 2 or 3 homes laid out, spanning the lots because they're 250-foot deep lots. So it's been in transition for a long time. The architecture, I didn't design this project. Tony Zcase did, of Zcase Design Systems. And it's basically a craftsman style to match the existing house. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see the floor plans of the units.
Why don't you walk us through the elevations and particularly the heights and materials and things like that?
Oh, man. Starting with building 1 and 2. So that's on sheet.
Yes.
Let's see, where are we at? Building 1 and 2. So basically it's horizontal plank siding in the cutout there for the garages. There's a little shed roof, and then there's plank siding up in the gable end, and there's stucco buildings. Typical metal clad windows, but they're keeping the existing sills with the same trim that you normally have. Shingled roof. There's some knee braces and whatnot on the gables. Kind of keep it in a craftsman foundation situation. Go down to the next one. That's the first building when you enter the lot. You go down to maybe sheet 7 or 8. So this is the rear 3 units, 3-car garages. Looking at it from the driveway side, you see the same situation. It's horizontal plank siding around the garages and stucco everywhere else with knee braces, asphalt shingle roof. The heights, can't see them. Let's see.
Here we go, zoom in on the.
8-foot plates, 8-foot plates with a 5 and 12 roof, 23 feet 4 inches high, 24 feet on this one. The other one's 23.4. The existing house is probably like around 16 or 17. See well below under the solar angle. The chimneys are just the hardy plank wrap. Very meager in the sense that they're just 8-foot plates with a foot in between and a 5 and 12 typical roof. I'm not sure exactly what the colors are that are, there they are right there, La Habra, so Coral Gables stucco color. So it's kind of what you're seeing right there is the same color. Weatherwood Gray, Landmark Series, Designer Series. It's like the windows are mill guards. Anything else you'd like to see?
Yeah, the exterior lighting, all the, the typical stuff that
All that
you've
stuff
got here.
It's actually not in this set. There was a few pages missing as far as the architectural detailings and the lighting and the electrical plan and all that. We weren't counting on having this whole thing reviewed entirely again.
Okay, well, it looks like on sheet 12, there's an exterior light fixture. I'm assuming that's typical of all locations. That's at each.
Yeah, I don't have a sheet 12 in my set, I'm sorry. There are some details on that sheet, and that's where the fence detail is, but I didn't have that sheet in my set.
Okay. All right. Okay, do you want to add anything else to your presentation?
Yeah, you said it's the lighting and just typical wood guardrails, painted in that cobalt color, knee braces, permeable paver driveway, you can see it there, the driveway pavers, and then the walkway pavers. And just typical hip and valley details, and then the window details, and pretty much just the cross stills with the trim underneath, and same on the header. Look like aluminum 3-inch gutter downspouts. Since it went through in 2019, I'm sure they're in tier 3 and they've met all that requirement. Because they're in building plan check, just about ready to get approval. We're just waiting on the mod.
Okay. Since we're on this sheet, for instance, detail 5 there, the window head, does this represent the intention that the windows are set in? It's not a nail-on vinyl window?
I couldn't answer that question. I don't know. It says they're mill guards, so I would assume that they're not block frame like that. Yeah, it's going to be a nail fin.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry to jump in there, but do you want to add anything else to your presentation?
No, whatever you guys.
Okay.
You guys direct me.
Okay. Well, then we will open public comment for this project. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a comment on this project?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I do not see anybody that has logged into the webinar for comment on this item.
And this is Mary. I just wanted to say no written correspondence was received for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we will close public comment and move on to questions from the board. Richard, do you have questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, looking at the site plan, and if Mark if he could address this, I don't see any, except for like 2 feet in some areas in front of the existing 1-story. I don't see any landscape opportunities except for what is that? About 1 foot or less on some of the front elevations of, or northern elevations of this, of the, unit 4, 5, and 6, and 1 and 2. Is that all the landscape that up to we have in front of those buildings? And if, you know, is this existing colored concrete walkway a new item, or is it part of the driveway? And why does this project have to have these detectable strips in these quarter circular areas?
Chair 6, you're correct. There's not a lot of planting there in front of the building. Those are detectable warnings for handicap accessibility, because one of the units has to be handicap accessible, and it happens to be the one at the very end, number 6. So as they go across those dangerous areas and a driveway like that, so a blind person, they have to have those detectable warnings to let them know that you're entering off the path. I don't see the landscape plan. I haven't seen that. Oh, there it is right there. So this was all done by you guys originally with the full irrigation and everything. And that was what was proposed and approved. And you can see the
So
old.
we don't have, I don't see there's, in the sheet index, it lists L1, but it doesn't appear in the PDF as far as I can see.
You know, I hadn't seen it, to be honest. We just thought we were coming in for the slight change in order to just get a mod to reinstate this thing, but nobody ever told us that we had to go back for a full review of the entire project.
Well,
Because it was just approved last year. Even though the zoning changed in 2017, the only thing that affected it was the open yard.
I understand. I understand. So I don't know, does anybody else see the landscape plan other than what's on screen here? I don't see it on this drawing set online.
No, it's not in the drawing
Unless-
set.
No, it's not.
Okay, so this is the first we're seeing it. So we need to, can we zoom in on the plans? And what's not?
I think that Tony had contacted Phil Suding to have him just update the trash enclosure areas. And we were hoping to come back with that as far as once we receive the modification and come back for final. Just to change those areas.
Okay, can we, staff, can we zoom in to the actual plan itself so we can see what's going on there? So let's zoom in on unit 1 and 2.
So that looks like less than well, there is no landscaping in front of the majority of 1 and 2. Can we scan down to the 4, 5, and 6? And it's the same here. Okay, that answers that question. And this was approved last year, huh?
No, it was not last year. It was Or was it? Well, the project approval expired in 2019.
Right, but it got PDA back in November of 2016, but it languished in the system for a while, and there was a bunch of review after finals and everything. And the only thing I can find on the approval was that it was on 9/11 of 2019 online. There's no more information now that COVID's hit and they changed the computer system. That's all I can find.
And my other question was, Mark, are you sure that we've maxed out the driveway width, this walkway in front of we can't reduce the driveway width and or the walkway width to accommodate more depth of planting along these subject elevations with 6 inches of something there?
I'm sure that's possible. If you look at along the far driveway side, there's more room. Apparently there's 17 feet, 7 inches from the property line across the driveway to the new building. Both of them, even the main one, the existing and the proposed. So 17.7 with a 12-foot driveway is 5'7", and then you got the walkway is going to have to be 36.
Well, okay, so we're
Like feet 7. I mean, they could split the difference and come up with more space there.
well, okay, whatever. So it sounds like we're not in a absolute. My question would be, there's some wiggle room with those dimensions, and you are saying yes. Thank you. And then on the new, you mentioned that they were metal clad windows, and I read on the plans they are vinyl.
Yes, I'm sorry, they are vinyl. They're Milgard vinyl.
Okay, and I didn't hear the question and response about the inset of the windows. So the windows will be inset, or they will be nail on the exterior surface? The details say inset.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's what they are. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't study the project that closely, to be honest.
Okay, well, we'll assume
Architecture.
that they're inset.
We can verify.
Those are my questions.
Okay, does anybody else have questions? You can raise your hand. No other questions? Dennis, is that a half a question? You got? No, okay. All right. So obviously the landscape plan doesn't depict the current trash enclosure layout in the back. If you can flip back to the landscape plan. So.
Correct. Phil hadn't updated that yet.
Okay. All right.
You can see the old trash enclosure though. We just took 3 of them and flipped them up all the way up against the driveway paving. And
I got you. I got that.
And got rid of 3 of them. So the
All right,
driveway.
and sorry, my question is, and then in that the outdoor space between unit 3 and 4, that's a common outdoor space?
Yeah, the area planted there is a common, and then the one that has an X towards the front. Yeah, that's a common
That's
area.
right. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's their private outdoor living space towards the front with the X.
Okay. All right. those are my questions. So let's go into comments. We could have all the board members on the screen. Okay. So obviously this is an odd scenario and it's unfortunate for the applicant. But, you know, it's incumbent upon them to keep their application active and moving. So with that in mind, who would like to start us off with comment?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I find it, I can't believe that we, back in 2016, would approve these front of these units without much landscaping or any landscape in the front of these elevations on the north side. And I would suggest that that some kind of compromise or creative solutions be found to address at least a two-foot planter along these primary elevations. Number two, I find it very unfortunate on the new arrangement of the trash areas in front of Unit 6 that, you know, one has to squeeze by the side of the trash area to turn in a what looks like about a 3.5 foot wide enclosed fenced off area to enter the front door. I'm okay with the vinyl windows because they are deeply inset and will rely on that inset to accept the vinyl instead of metal clad or wood. And I, you know, even though it's way beyond, you know, when I first reviewed this, I looked at, you know, are these adjacent properties to the south, especially, have privacy concerns. So, you know, even though it was approved a while back, I think we need to do our due diligence and see some photographs of the adjacent conditions and determine what privacy issues there might be or were accepted back in 2016. You know, I'm wondering as I look at this, and I don't like to offer solutions because they're quick and dirty, but I'm wondering if the way the stair works for unit, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to take those 3 trash areas in the very back of the drive and somehow tuck them under one of the stairs within the building on the northern elevation. I think maybe that can be studied. So those are my comments.
Okay. Mr. Black, any comments? Sorry.
No, sorry. No additional comments. I definitely agree with the comment about providing landscape fronting the structures. I think it would make it a much nicer project for sure. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Whalen.
Well, to that point, I don't think the landscaping in front of the units is a big deal, but I will defer to the landscape architects on that. Since this project is new to my eyes, I did want to express my support for the massing of the project, which I think is done very, very well and sophisticated. I like the street elevation on unit number 1 and the way each of the units, that is number 2 to number 3 and number 3 to number 4, it all seems like a very nicely orchestrated and massing of building, and within the limits of its neighborhood and the budget. I think that he's done an admirable job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think we should be, as we're making our comments, we should be talking about the modification for the open yard area. So if you have any feelings one way or the other, please let us know.
I'm ready, Chairman.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I agree with what Commissioner Whalen just said about the architecture of the buildings. And I do think they're in that area quite good. I think the part that's extraordinary about this, about the applicant having to come back, and it concerns me a little bit. I'd like to see us send this to consent, but ask them to redo the site plan to see if there's a possibility for landscaping in the front of these buildings, and also to bring the rest of the site plan and landscape plan up to date at the consent.
Okay. Any feeling about the
Oh, yes.
open yard?
I think we should grant the applicant the approval for that.
Okay. Mr. Cunningham?
I concur with everything that's been said so far, with the exception of Mr. Whalen's comment regarding the landscaping in front. I think we're talking about 7 residential units here where the residents and guests will be walking past windows with absolutely, essentially 0 setback. And it's not simply a matter of landscape, it's a matter of gracious entrance to one's home. So I think it's absolutely essential that the driveway and landscaping in front of the units be reconfigured to the extent possible to provide more of a setback than it's currently shown. I agree with regard to the modification. I think we should grant that. I recall seeing this project when it was first given PDA. And I recall discussing the landscaping with the landscape architect. However, I do think we need to look at it again. Not seeing it in the PDFs, I did not review it closely. So I would like the opportunity to do that, but we can see this on consent. I don't have a problem with that. I think that the driveway and the landscape setback really need to be seriously considered. That's all.
Okay. I don't have anything else to add other than I can support the waiver for the open yard, or the variance, or what are they asking for? An open yard modification. So I can support that aspect of the project. So why don't we have a straw vote for which board members can support the open yard modification? We can do a roll call vote for that.
All right, this is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes, with a caveat that something else has to be done with the arrangement of the entry to Unit 6 and the trash. But yes, I can support the modification in its numbers.
Okay.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes,
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes, I support the modifications.
All right, the vote passes. Thank you.
Okay. So, does somebody want to jump in there with a motion? Otherwise, I can try. So I'll say that the board, well, so there's no final appealable decision. So what we can say at this point is that the board is supportive of the applicant's open yard modification. However, the board would like the site plan to be restudied to provide additional planting along the front of the units and along the walkway and the front of the units. Otherwise, the project appears to be in compliance with the project compatibility analysis and the design guidelines that are applicable. And that this project can be continued, I guess, can be continued to the next available consent calendar for project design approval.
I could second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Olson.
I would like to also suggest that I think that it's been suggested that the changes in the trash center, how that needs to be made also. I don't think that was part of your motion.
It wasn't. So we could say restudy the location of the recycling bins. I believe they're recycling that were up against the unit 2.
I think it's unit 6. Is that what we're talking about?
No, the ones that are up against the building. Which unit number is that?
2.
Number 2, yeah. Is that what you're referring to, Leon?
Yes, but I thought that the applicant mentioned that they revised them in 3 locations. And maybe I misunderstood that.
No, it looks like they have the trash at the back in the driveway, and then the recycling is against building number 2.
Okay.
I think. So we would amend the motion to read, restudy the location of the recycling and green waste bins adjacent to unit number 2.
Works with the second.
Under this, I will.
Yes.
I won't be supporting the motion unless restudy of what I consider the unacceptable location of the trash in the very back in relationship to the entry to number 6 is studied. But if you don't want to add that to your motion, then I won't be able to support it.
Okay.
Assessment?
Go ahead, Mr. Cunningham. You had something to add?
I agree with Richard. I agree with Richard regarding the location of the trash enclosure. I think that needs to be worked out better than it currently is. So I would also vote no unless you care to add that to your motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, you're muted. Mr. Chair, you're muted.
You're
Mr.
muted.
Chair. Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, board members.
Chair, you're muted.
Mr. Chair, you've been muted for the last couple of minutes here. So sorry about that. We didn't get any of what you just said.
Is everybody else hearing me?
Now,
Yes, we can hear you.
now we are.
Okay. Leon, do you have anything else?
No, but I didn't hear any
You're
of
muted.
what.
We're not hearing you, Leon.
I don't know who's talking.
Or at least I'm not hearing Leon. Can anybody else hear Leon?
Mr. Chair.
You
Mr.
can.
Chair, I think the dilemma is that if you added to your motion in regards to the trash in front of number 6, we didn't hear any of it. So I think we need to back up to whatever you said in response to.
There it goes. Can hear you now.
Okay.
Yep.
So I apologize, Leon, but I didn't hear what you had said.
Okay, so what we're saying is that we didn't hear any of your comments once you started speaking to them. I don't think any of us did.
Okay. Let's see. So the last change or edit to that was to restudy the locations of all recycling and trash bin enclosures.
I can support that.
Okay,
As the second, I can.
great. All right, so let's read the motion back, please.
All right, so the motion is to continue indefinitely for return to consent with the following comments. Number 1, the board is supportive of the applicant's open yard modification request. However, the site plan shall be restudied to provide additional planting along the front of the units and along the walkway in the front of the unit. Number 2, the board finds that generally the compatibility analysis criteria have been met. Number 3, the project meets design guidelines. And number 4, restudy the location of all recycling bins and green waste bins adjacent to unit number 2.
Okay. Did we get it all?
No,
Then, no.
said recycling bins to unit 2. We want recycling and trash bins inside a unit 2 and unit 6.
Unit 6, yes.
Okay.
Let's just restate that to read, restudy the locations of all trash and recycling bins.
Okay.
Okay,
That's okay with the second.
great. And then did we say the board is supportive of the open yard modification?
Yes.
Okay, and then we continued this to the next available consent calendar.
Yes.
Is that correct, Mary?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's take our vote.
All right. So we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Cunningham,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And looks like we can continue on to item number 3 if we have the applicant ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicants are here for this item.
Great. So, okay, so item number 3 is 1425 Las Positas Road, and is a proposal for creek bed remediation and pedestrian improvements within designated city parkland. Project proposed to restore ephemeral tributary drainage, improvements to existing formal trail routes, an 85-foot-long bridge across Oroboro Creek at the northern end of the park, and relocation of an existing water main. Project also entails 80 feet of Oroboro Creek bank restoration and 507 cubic yards of grading cut and fill. Project design approval and final approval is requested. Project requires compliance with project compatibility analysis and was last here March 9th of this year. All right, if we could have our applicant up, and a note for the applicant, we have our 15-minute timer for your presentation. So if you could keep an eye on that and introduce yourself and walk us through any changes that have happened.
Hi, I'm Erin Markey. I am the Creeks Restoration Planner with the City Creeks Division. And yeah, so we were reviewed back in March. I don't know if we can pull up the plan set that was included with the submittal. I can walk you through the changes, but this is the open space park down at the end of Allen Road that the city acquired back 2015. We completed a large restoration project along the creekside portion of the property 2 years ago, and now we're coming back to do some additional upland restoration and trail and access improvements. So if we can go to the second sheet of the plan set. So this is just kind of a site overview. Okay, I'll just jump ahead. So there's 3 main components. If you guys remember, we're restoring this upland tributary drainage area. So this is a site overview. So up in the left corner is that tributary drainage we call Campanile drainage. It takes water off of like the Campanile Hill development area and a lot of open space up there and out onto this property. So we're going to be doing some restoration to that little drainage and putting in an elevated boardwalk over the little drainage there to provide safer access for park visitors, but also keep that wetland area preserved and untrampled from foot traffic. So I don't believe you guys really had any comments about that. And then the other large component, I guess, is the pedestrian bridge that will be going at the north end of the park to connect to the future Las Positas multi-use pathway that's currently under construction. And then just some in general trail improvements, I guess I'll call them. This property, when the city took ownership, had some kind of existing trails out there that were just informal trail routes that were created by the public. We've decided we want to go in and actually formalize some of those routes, add in some bends and meanders to give a little more interest out there. So those are kind of the 3 main components. Let me go to your comments from last time. So the major changes since last time we were here, if we go ahead to, I think it's sheet 6. Oh. I don't know. And actually one more sheet. So we've made some modifications to the bridge area. Let me look, sorry, real quickly on my plans. I'm looking for the sheet that's the bridge overview. Let's a zoom in of, I don't know why my plan sheets aren't loading.
Sheet C5 is the bridge.
Okay. Sorry, my sheets aren't loading on my end. Sheet C5, thank you. So this is where most of the changes that came up from last meeting are addressed. So we had been asked to study the bridge abutments to look at possibly rounding the edges as well as making them just less graffiti prone or appealing. So we've rounded those what were just straight wing walls to give them a round edge to just kind of aesthetically look more natural out there as well, but also not have a flat surface that's likely to be tagged. We looked into facing them with some sort of rock veneer, which was going to be pretty expensive. Additionally, this park is pretty rural and we haven't had any graffiti issues. There's existing abutments along the water line that's here to be relocated, and we haven't had any graffiti issues there, as well as on the signs that we have out at the park. So given how quickly the vegetation that we're going to be planting is going to grow in and fill in and cover those short wall faces, we just felt like it was an excessive cost for such a short period of time. This area is going to be densely planted with vegetation that'll cover those walls within a year or so. But we did round the corners and they will be colored concrete, the same sandstone color as the pathways through here. And then we had a comment about so as part of this bridge, we're proposing this lookout platform on the south edge of the bridge to kind of overlook the creek and look at the recently completed restoration areas. And as part of that, we were originally showing a rounded edge to that. And it was pointed out at the last board meeting that that would conflict with the railing design that we're showing, a cable, and the cables wouldn't be able to go around a rounded edge. So we've actually, that was a great comment we received from you guys, and we've modified it to be square edges now, so right angles to accommodate the railing design that we had chosen. Additionally, wanted to mention that as part of the previous restoration project that we completed 2 years ago, we did install a few logs and boulders as resting areas throughout the park. That was a comment we received. So there are some of those features out there already. I think I mentioned last time that when we had community meetings to solicit input on this project in the past, there was a strong desire to not see benches or picnic tables or sort of developed features out here from both the neighbors and community members that we spoke to. So we were trying to go with a little more natural feel of some boulders. And so as a comment from last time, we've added in some additional kind of landscape boulders in places to provide resting areas if people are interested in doing that. And just as a side note, there may be some modification to some of the landscape boulders shown. We had a comment from transportation that with this wide bend on the east side, there's the potential for people to cut this corner. So we may add some additional landscaping and boulders there to try and discourage that. That was a comment we had from them. So there may be some minor modification to the positioning of the landscape boulders that are shown. Let's see. Those are all the changes since last time we were here. I just wanted to also add, we included interpretive signage as part of the initial phase of restoration work that was completed 2 years ago. And we will also be including an interpretive sign on the bridge lookout area. So on that bump out on the bridge, it's a perfect opportunity to have some interpretive signage there as people are overlooking the creek. So that was, I believe, a comment from last time was to include more resting areas and interpretive opportunities. And There will be signage at the intersection of the pathway back on sheet 5, intersection of this pathway across the bridge and the multi-use pathway, about walking bikes through that area. That this is for pedestrians, and if people want to cycle in the open space park, which is allowed, it's open to all passive recreation, they can, but through this pathway and across the bridge, it's going to be asked that bikes be walked across, just to not have conflicts there with how sharp a turn that is, and how just cross traffic not have a conflict there. Yeah, I think that is all the major updates that have happened. I don't know if there's any additional questions or information wanted about the project.
Okay, we will get there. If that concludes your presentation, we will open public comment. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board on this project, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, I don't see anybody logged into the webinar for public comment on this item.
And we did not receive any written correspondence for this item either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Leon, did you have a question or two?
I have no questions.
Okay, who does have questions?
I do.
Mr. Black, go ahead.
Several. So first question has to do with the bridge. Now, that's a new bridge, correct?
Correct. This is a newly proposed bridge.
Okay.
So this,
Is there more of a detail of the bridge? I mean, are there railings, or did you make mention of cables? But I don't see that anywhere, do I?
yeah, sorry, this was reviewed at a previous meeting we had. I don't know if we can pull up the photographs that were submitted with this application. There was example photographs submitted, but the railing is going to be, yeah, this is perfect. If you can scroll through to like the third to last image, these are some of the existing site photos out here. So here we go.
Okay.
So colored concrete, we're going to have a wooden decking. It's going to be like a rust, I forgot the term for it, but it kind of rusts over time, metal facade of the bridge. This little wood bridge is an example of the elevated boardwalk that's going to go across the tributary drainage. This photo is actually the bridge that's downstream across Mesa Creek, as part of the restoration that we did on there. Is just a similar example. If we go up one page for the photographs, this will actually be a slightly different style bridge to accommodate the water. So it'll be this bottom right photo. It's called a truss or stringer bridge rather than a truss bridge, because we're going to be attaching the existing water line that's out there to the underside I-beam. So we kind of need this stronger structure to support that. So it'll be that style of bridge with a metal and cable railing, much like the one shown on the little lookout platform on the left. And then a wooden deck, colored concrete for the pathway leading up to the bridge. And then once you're across the bridge within the open space, all of the pathways will be earthen, hard compacted natural pathways.
So as a follow-up, these are lovely photographs, but is this the design that we see in these photographs, is that being made part of the plans, the construction plans?
Yes. Yes, we have additional.
Not part of your set though, is it?
So we had so the bridge design, the way this gets bid out actually is we just have specifications of what the bridge structure is, and then it's on the contractor to actually go to it. These are usually off-the-shelf prefabricated bridge structures. So they select the bridge manufacturer, and then, you know, they meet all of our specifications of what we've required. So we don't have a bridge manufacturer selected yet, but we have all the specifications set up for what that structure will look like. And there's been structural designs done for the abutments and the capacities of the bridge and all that, but we don't have those detailed shop drawings yet, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And then,
And then the little lookout areas at either end of the bridge, are there railings there as well, or a low wall, or what, is there anything like that?
yes, so
That's shown anywhere?
so we have the lookout on the bridge itself. We'll have the same railing as the bridge, and then those little widened pad areas, I guess I'll call them, at the bridge on either side of the bridge approach. Those we've just decided to make concrete to fill in because the retaining wall for the bridge abutment is going to be there. And so, yeah, there will be a railing, a concrete edge restraint there. I don't know if I can go back to the plan set. It seems kind of slow. So we'll match the bridge structure railing exactly along the top of that. There'll be a little concrete edge, and then the railing of the bridge will extend along the top of that wall.
Okay. I think what Mr. Black is asking for is there some sort of elevation or drawing depicting all of these elements. And it doesn't sound like there is, other than what we're seeing here. Is that correct?
There were separate plans submitted for the actual bridge designs. I don't know, because they're a separate designer. We have a civil and a structural, so I don't know if those are included at the end of this.
Oh, we haven't seen them, at least not that I remember.
Okay, they were definitely uploaded. Stella.
Okay, so can planning staff take a look and see what else we have? Okay, in the meantime, any other questions?
Yeah, just one other. I know we talked about amenities, and I guess there was some pushback from the neighbors or what have you in terms of benches and or seating areas, what have you. So what about the notion about any trash receptacles? Is that gonna be an issue per se when people walking through there? What about people walk their dogs through there? Will there be poop bag dispensers along this trail, or is there a need for one? I'm just sort of anticipating that there might be, but.
Yeah, those are existing facilities at the entrance at Allen Road.
Oh, they are.
Currently.
Okay. So they have all that there?
There are trash recycling. There's a poop bag dispenser as well.
Okay. Good. And then there are no plantings involved with what you're proposing here as part of this set, correct?
No, there are. So
have we seen?
It should be. So this has been separated out into a civil set and a landscape set. So there should be the landscape sheets at the end of this. Would be sheet L. And we reviewed it last time as well. So there's about 2,600 native plants all being planted throughout the areas that are disturbed. I think, here we go. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't see.
So we have different kind of zones of planting.
Right.
Our riparian zone, our upland zone, our oak woodland zone, and then the wetland zone for the tributary drainage area. And we additionally in the photographs included some photos of examples of all of these species.
And will there be temporary irrigation for these plantings when they first go in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually have to irrigate for the first summer, if not the second summer.
Yes.
Usually we wean them off after that.
Okay, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Richard, go ahead.
This might have helped if I had noticed it in a previous review, but were there any I'm looking at the intersection of the multi-purpose and the new path. It just seems to be abrupt in 90 degrees. Was there any consideration of widening or at least softening the edges, or kind of a node for, converging traffic and stops and starts? It seems like it's fairly abrupt.
So this was considered, we worked with our transportation department to discuss this. So there was a desire to have it fan out a little more. But given it's kind of a couple of constraints here, we had originally shown like a boulder in the middle of the path close to the bridge as like a ballard to kind of slow traffic down and force people off their bikes, and transportation didn't love that. And I think you guys also commented on that last time to remove that and just put signage. So that's the route we've moved with that direction. But to further force bikes to kind of dismount, we felt like it was better to have a sharper turn there. It's something we've discussed with transportation and they're okay with. Originally, they asked it to be a little more fanned out, but we just feel like that would further encourage bikes to go speed. This is all a downslope from the bike path to the bridge, and we're just worried about fast moving traffic around those turns on this part that they can really pick up speed because of the grade there. So to further discourage that, keep it more.
I won't put a kibosh on that, but it would seem to me that if bicyclists are dismounting in the middle of the path, of the multi-purpose path, that's more of a traffic situation for people that are coming up to them. So it seemed to me that maybe not a flare, but maybe maybe a widening of the multi-purpose or something to accommodate the traffic and the dismounting of bikes there would be a consideration.
Yeah, it was considered. I'll just add the pathway, the multi-use pathway is 12 feet wide, and so substantial width to provide.
I won't press it any further.
Okay. Any other questions? Dennis, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to bring up a point brought up by Mr. Cunningham about facing the abutments with stone. Ms. Markley, I think you gave a very good rebuttal to that. They'll be covered with plantings, but are there any other points on the plan, that is the bridge and areas where stone facing is used? I got a little bit lost in your presentation.
No, we are not proposing facing at this point. We have rounded the edges of the abutments, and we're using some natural boulders to kind of tie those two elements together. But we're not proposing there is no other area for stone facing, and we're not proposing to do it on the abutments themselves.
So again, if I understood you correctly, the little areas on either end of the bridge, that's a cast in place concrete wall that's tinted?
Yes.
Like a low seat wall or of some height?
So it's actually a retaining wall as part of the bridge abutment, but it will extend just barely above grade of the path. So the wall itself, there's like a drop off on I'm like, how do I explain it? So
Has planning staff been able to locate the drawings for the bridge? Is it part of the landscape set here?
No, it would.
Thank you, Chair Moore. I was able to log into Excella and see that the applicant uploaded two set, the civil set and the landscape set, and they're both here in front of us.
Okay. So where would the elevation of the bridge and abutments be?
There should be a cross-section plan view that you can see kind of the retaining wall nature of the abutments. It would be in the civil set. I believe it's sheet 6.
I think we've seen that, and it didn't include any other information really.
I don't believe it includes the railing information, but where is the one? Maybe it's on the bottom of sheet 5. Sorry. So the retaining wall, yeah. So the retaining wall will meet up with the grade of the pathway, and the railing of the bridge will continue through that bulb out until we're back to existing grade, essentially, because we had to build this wall and there's so much fill to get to the elevation of the bridge. There will be railing at the top of the wall and it tapers back to existing grade. You can see kind of the grade lines along the edge of the path, but on that rounded wall.
So I think I see the railing on top of the rounded wall, but that's all that's exposed. There's no wall above, shall we say, grade level. It's all railing.
Correct. There won't be a wall.
Okay. And then what are the two little round gray circles at the end of the railing?
Yeah, those are boulders that'll be concreted in, matching the other landscape boulders that are throughout.
They're boulders. All right, then. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Leon, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Getting back to the railing and the boulder question. So if we zoom in, can you zoom into that area where your mouse is? So this boulder, so how wide is the bridge?
The bridge structure is 8 feet wide.
8 feet. Okay. So that
Matches-
boulder graphically is it what, 2, 3 feet wide?
It's a 2 to 3 foot boulder. Each of these landscape boulders shown.
Okay. And then there's, so the gray surface, is it asphalt?
The gray surface will be colored concrete. The pathway will
Colored
not.
concrete.
And abutment with sandstone colored concrete path.
Okay. And then there's a curb running around the perimeter. Is that also colored?
There will not be a curb along the pathway. I think just in the area of the rounded abutment wall, there will be a small curb to attach the railing to.
Mhm. Okay, because there's a double line outside of the pathway, which would lead you to believe that's a curb of some sort. Or a boundary.
Yeah, I see the line you're talking about. There is a split rail fencing detail shown. I don't know if you can see the square and gray line. There's a split rail fencing that'll connect to the railing on the north side of the path right there. But there isn't a curb. We actually have to capture all the runoff from this path for stormwater. So all the runoff will be directed to these yellow areas, stormwater detention. There's not a curb.
Okay. All right. Okay, those are my questions. So let's go to comments now. Who would like to start? Okay, go ahead, Richard.
I think it's a beautiful plan and executed very well. I think that it would be best if we had the bridge shop drawings and the railing, curved railing above these, around these observation things come back to consent. So, because I'm a little unsure on how all that works, and again, we have a curve with a supposed cable and so forth, so I would recommend that the shop drawings come to consent. But other than that, it's beautifully in my opinion, it's a beautifully executed plan, and I believe that the tagging and so forth is, I believe that it'll be deeply overgrown with shrubbery and so forth, and there won't be a problem with tagging. That's my
Okay,
comments.
Okay, so you feel it's ready for project design approval?
With the exception that the shop drawings come to consent, yes.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else or any differing opinions?
Mine is not different. It seems
Okay.
like it requires some faith here that things are gonna turn out like we hope they are. And so I think it's really important to see the plans for the bridge. I'm surprised they're not here.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's something we can look at for final review and make sure that they're conforming to these images that we've been shown. Obviously, it would be nice to do that now, but doesn't seem like that's the process that they work with. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, I'm in agreement with the comments so far. With one specific comment, if you could zoom back in on that, it would be the eastern abutment that we were looking at before, and back to that boulder. When we got the zoom in look, it occurred to me that that boulder is at least a third of the way into the pathway and could really, it just looks wrong. It's too far into the pathway. Now, I realize that maybe you're trying to get bikes to slow down. I think that's the wrong thing to do. Bikes are going to ride, they're going to ride. It seems like that's going to catch somebody's pedal. It just looks wrong to me. So I would like to see that corrected as it would come back to the consent agenda.
Okay. I agree. I think there just needs to be a little bit more finessing done with some of these elements that, they come together, but it's not quite figured out yet. Like that, particularly that boulder, maybe it sits mostly outside of the pathway and intersects with the arc of the railing, a little bit more up in plan. So it's more out of the way and more integrated. It seems a little funny and, so there's just a lot of detail here that isn't fully depicted, and it's hard to get a sense of what it really looks like without the elevations of these areas. So I would make a motion for project design approval and continuance to the consent calendar. I guess continuance to the consent calendar with the following comments: that the board appreciates this project and the planning that's gone into it, and is excited to see this be constructed. Prior to granting final approval, the applicant shall provide full shop drawings of the bridge and all adjacent concrete work and railings. In particular, show how the railings terminate and into the natural features like sandstone boulders, and provide project details showing heights of railings and materials to be used. Let's see, what else was there? Consider carefully the location of boulders so as not to conflict with pathway users. And before we read the project compatibility criteria, does anybody have anything else to add to that list?
Well,
Go ahead.
just
Go ahead.
a discussion, Chair Moore. I get the understanding that the bridge is going to be design build, which would work against having shop drawings at this point. Now, I, like all the other members, would like to see this kind of detail, but I just don't think we can ask for shop drawings. If there's some way of wording that without that term shop drawings in greater detail or
Sure.
something.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so let's update that to, instead of saying shop drawings, provide architectural elevations and details of the bridge abutments, and adjoining railing design.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Okay. So we have a pending second after I read the compatibility criteria. So we believe this project meets the project compatibility criteria as it fully complies with all city charter and municipal code requirements and is consistent with the project's location in the city. Number two, the design is compatible with the architectural qualities of Santa Barbara because of the materials and emphasis on landscape improvements in the project. Number three, the size, mass, bulk, height, and scale is appropriate for this location because it is hardscape and landscape improvements. And number four, it is not adjacent, as far as we know, is not adjacent to any landmarks or historic resources. Number five, the design of the project responds appropriately and actually probably enhances scenic public vistas by creating greater public access to natural areas. And number six, the project does include appropriate amount of open space and landscaping due to its nature as a project. Okay, so Leon seconded that motion. Can we have it read back, please?
Yes. All right, so the motion is for project design approval and continue indefinitely to consent with the following comments. Number one, the board appreciates the project and the planning behind it and looks forward to the construction of the project. Two, provide architectural elevations and details of the bridge abutments, and railing design. Three, provide project details showing the heights of railings and materials to be used. Consider the locations of boulders so as not to conflict with pathway users. And lastly, the compatibility analysis criteria were met.
Great. Okay. So we had our first and second. Let's take a vote.
All right, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And let's see, item 4 is scheduled for 5:40, so we can get going on it if we have the applicants with us.
Thank you, Chair Moore. We do have the applicants. I'm just promoting them right now.
Great. All right, so this is item number 4, 402 South Hope Avenue concept review. This is a proposal for a 2,398 square foot addition and remodel to the existing car dealership building and a new 1,536 square foot unenclosed service portico. The project includes widening the driveway access from Calle Real from 12 feet to 24 feet, new electric vehicle charging stations, including an accessible stall, partial demolition of existing low wall to allow installation of a new vehicle gate, partial demolition of an existing arcade columns, and an interior remodel. The project will require development plan approval at ABR. This project has not been reviewed against all relevant city development standards. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. This project requires development plan approval and compliance with project compatibility analysis and the urban design guidelines and outdoor lighting design guidelines. Okay. When the applicant is ready, you can come on screen, please. Okay.
I think we're waiting for, there we go, Mike
There we
Ramsey.
go.
He's driving
Right.
the bus.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
So before you jump in there, please note that we have a 15-minute timer. You'll see that up in the upper right-hand corner. If you could limit your presentation to that time,
Okay.
that'd be appreciated. If you could introduce yourselves and your team.
I'm Mike Ramsey with Lasardi Construction, and I'll be
Welcome.
presenting the project.
Dwayne Sanders representing the ownership for Santa Barbara Auto Group and Porsche Santa Barbara.
Trevor Arthur, I'm the Vice President for Area West of Porsche Cars North America, working operationally with the dealership, of course, in Santa Barbara.
Okay. Welcome. All right, take it away.
Okay, the project is, I guess we could go to the next sheet here, second sheet, the site plan. Okay. Currently, right now, there's 2 overhang areas out in front of the Porsche portion of this dealership. Mercedes is here, and this is the Porsche, and then there's BMW and Audi over here. What they'd like to do is enclose
I'm sorry, Mike, just so you know, we can't see your mouse moving, so you're gonna have to direct the man behind the scenes here where you want him to.
Okay, you can go over to the front of the Porsche areas where it says, it calls out the new 883 square feet of new Porsche showroom. Those are expansion areas. Right now they're a covered display area. Those will be enclosed with glass, and that square footage get folded into the showroom area. And then an addition of 561 square feet will be added right there in the corner that would be where the service advisors sit. And then right down below there is the 1,500 square foot portico, which you'd pull under, and they get out of their cars, the service advisors, they go up to the service advisor's desk and meet with them. And then the car is pulled through into that area to, let's say, to the right side of the plan, there's a rolling gate that would close off the area right now, which leads to service. And then there's an open area portico just to tie the whole thing together. And
I think when you see the conceptual, you'll understand what that all is.
yeah, I think if we want to go move to the elevations, which is, I believe, the last page, you can kind of see a better picture of what's the exterior is going to look like. So if you go to the last page of the plans.
You have to bear with staff. Sometimes there's a bit of a lag on
Okay.
the drawings.
And I think, and just to note that last year, all the landscape had been redone along with the other project that was the previous year. So everything has been all brought up to stormwater, and all the landscape has been redone prior to this project, the proposal of this project. You can see up in the front, up at the top of the page in the black and white, those are just the existing overhang areas that we're going to be enclosing that'll become part of the actual dealership portion, the showroom. And then in the middle is the proposed elevations, adding in the portico area and also the small service advisor's office. And this is trying to keep with the same similar architecture that's there right now. That's with the columns and trying to make everything kind of match. Because if you look on the Mercedes side, in some pictures that we turned in, the Mercedes side has some open entry area that looks similar to the portico area. And that would be, let's see. Yeah, if you look at that image 6, go back to that page, go back. Yeah, image 6 showed that. Oh, onto the image 6 to that, you see the kind of the open, as our down the one that's proposed on the left-hand side over Mercedes, whoops, in image 6 on the left-hand side, that has that open look as the portico did on the Porsche side, the proposed side. And it's also similar on the BMW side over on Hitchcock too. So. And I really think that that's, other than the widening of the driveway, the proposed elevations really, I think, sell what the project looks like.
We zoom in on the 3D views, the lower 2 drawings. Okay, so in the left image, number 3, you can see there's new storefront glazing and what is currently open.
Yeah, you'd see there's that, in that tall tower behind, that glass currently runs all the way down to grade. And now it would be, a portion of it would be up above the roof, but the other would be now filled in with glazing, well, under the, on the addition portion.
Okay, and then where's the driveway area that's being widened?
If you look down the bottom, it's the, I guess, the left-hand lower portion, you'll see part of the driveway. If we go back to the site plan, I'll show you there too. Which is the page 2 of the plans. So if you zoom in just above where that Cali Real, where it says Cali Real. And that's the driveway just below Cali Real is the driveway that is an existing 12-foot wide driveway, which would now go to a 24-foot wide.
Okay. Are there any landscape changes?
There will be some modifications in that island right there next to the driveway as it gets expanded. They'll be revised with new planting material. And then there will be over near where this service advisors, where you enter into the building, there'll be revised landscape there too.
Okay. Anything else to add?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory on the plans, but I do want to say that there is a wall that separates that service area now where we'd be adding the gate in, and the gate would be closed in the evenings and open during, business hours, but it would be, closed off at night.
And sorry, where would that be?
If you zoom in on the portico, the service portico.
So across the front of that, there would be a...
No, in the back behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see it says new curb, and right now, currently, there's a wall that goes straight across to that, and there's a man door that accesses, but it will now it'll be a rolling gate painted the same color as the wall is now. Solid gate.
Okay. And so one of the details that we need to consider is that you need development plan approval at this level. And that's to add the square footage?
Somewhat. We had previously on this project, we had gotten square footage approved to use for an expansion of the BMW and the Audi, about almost the same amount of square footage. And we didn't use that square footage. So we're still the development review, but we feel fairly confident that we possibly can, add the square footage. It's, an allotment, or they can revise it, but we didn't take the expansion over at the BMW and Audi. We just did the interior TI.
Okay, yeah. Can staff maybe weigh in on what what comments we need to make regarding that?
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, the development plan approval findings do not need to be made since they are only here for concept only. So you can consider that, but you don't need to make the findings today.
Okay, but what of our purview relates to the development plan approval?
100%, because the development plan approval for this is less than 3,000 square feet. Planning Commission is not required for this project. It's a design review only development plan approval.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else to add at this time?
No.
Okay, then we will open public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board regarding this project?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I do see somebody logged into the webinar. If you are here for public comment on this item, please raise your hand by clicking the hand icon. Okay, I don't see that anybody's raised their hand for this item, so I don't have any public comment for this item. Thank you.
And this is Mary. I just wanted to state that we did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll close public comment and go on to questions from the board. Dennis, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a couple of very minor technical questions, please. On sheet A200, there is mention of a demising wall.
Oh,
and
demising wall?
What is a demising wall and what are Arcadia columns?
I think it should be arcade, and it's that the demising wall is taking place inside the tenant improvement. It's just splitting Mercedes from the Porsche side, which you can see right, on the floor plan itself. And the arcade, if you look at A120, there's an existing arcade that you walk underneath. It goes from the Mercedes Porsche building over to the Audi BMW building. You zoom in towards the portico area, you can see it. Zoom in a little more. And you'll see that number 2, and just to the, just above it is that arcade that you walk underneath. You can see it in the photos too.
And that is to be removed.
No, just a portion of it does, just because there's a column of that that open portico that kind of ties that in there. It just gets removed back to that
I see.
set of columns.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's clear to me now.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's fine.
Okay, Mr. Olson, do you have questions?
No questions.
Okay. Let's see, anybody else, any other board members with questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Richard.
Notice that site functioning wise, there's quite a bit of dog leg. If I was a Porsche owner, and these Porsches aren't very reliable mechanically.
Oh. Ouch.
So I can imagine a long line of Porsches, stacking up in queue to get into the gate, especially. My question is, was it examined where, except for expense, it seems to me that the driveway should be more directly across and in line with the service port instead of that dogleg jog, through the parking lot. Was that examined and talked to with traffic, or why?
Well, it's using incorporating an existing drive, which was, I guess, was placed there before, so that at that corner, you didn't have cars, so they had room to stack up from the corner, cars turning or going straight on Cali Real. So keeping the drive back away from that corner where it is existing now. That's why leaving it there and expanding it to 24 foot from 12 was why we did that.
Okay,
And also leaving where that sign is, there's a big monument sign there that's been there since the dealership's been there, and the landscape island that kind of separates Mercedes side from where the Porsches are. So it was just kind of trying to conform with what's already on the site and what's approved on the site.
It seems that you might have some functional problems there, but that's not architecture. If we go to, oh gosh, the second sheet, A200, you see it better there. I don't understand why between, can we go there? A200, the next sheet. Hello? Well, I can, if we can't go to the next sheet, we can zoom in on this one to where the addition is. There we go. Thank you. So I don't understand why you have to jog the building so, in my opinion, awkwardly between the 883 square foot expansion and the 561 square foot addition. Why can't, so the building goes in and out again and exposes to the world or to the outside the left-hand column of the tower. Why can't you move that left, as you're facing the building, the left-hand column of
incorporate it with that? I think if you look at the, if you looked at the detail of that on the last elevation page, I think you would see it, but I mean, it can be detailed out differently, but I think that it also, there's an overhang between those columns that dies into that, so it's squared off. Otherwise I guess everything would be built inside that addition. You just capture everything and lose the column.
Lose the column of the tower.
Yeah, well, yeah, you'd bury the column of the tower inside the addition, and you just get rid of the new column and run that detail all the way across to the, front of where you enter at reception. I mean, it's not that much square footage, but it would be, and that's what you'd end up doing.
Well,
if you look at the elevation, you'll see the detail of the overhang that is mimicked throughout the entire building. That's what we're trying to capture there. So.
Well, it just seems very awkward, and it seems like you would move that column over to alignment with the new 883 square foot expansion space, and just let glass turn its 90 degrees at a column there and completely bury the tower inside your building. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. If you're looking at the 3D drawing at the end and the elevations.
Can we go there?
Yeah.
Can we go there?
Yeah. And it may not pick up that angle, but it's a detail we can bring in both ways and look at it both ways. It's just.
Yeah, if we zoom in on the bottom ones. It just seemed a lot cleaner
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if you ran, I understand what you're saying. I think that if you ran that roof in that, say, the false beam that's running horizontally, die it into the wall of the area of the portion where we're gonna be enclosing it, and just
Yeah.
move that column over and encapsulate the tower, I think that could be done.
Yeah, still send the column down, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
But-
that could totally be done.
Well, I'll leave it up to the rest of my board what they think, but it seems to me that if there's no technical, that's my question, if there's no technical reason, that will be it, that will be my comment later. That's my question.
Okay. All right, Leon, you didn't have any questions, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that was Richard, you captured my question. So, let's go on to comments then. Okay, if we could have all the board members up and the applicants can turn off their screens, please. Thank you. All right. Richard, why don't you start?
Yeah, so I think this, the additional square footage, is acceptable. I think this is a very large, piece of property and, a multifaceted program. And I don't think that the extra square footage aesthetically, imposes or functionally imposes any concern that we would have. And I think that the architecture is compatible with the existing architecture and design. And as I said in my question, that the applicant should explore simplifying the juncture between the two additions as discussed.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Does anybody have anything else to add?
No further comments.
None from me.
Okay, well, so, it's unfortunately we're kind of a concept only here, but I think we could give them some assurance that with those plan updates that Richard described, that we would be supportive of the project and would be able to make the project compatibility analysis and would support an approval of the development plan. So why don't we make a motion to, and this question goes to staff. So since there is no other planning commission or other route for this project, we would continue this project back to ABR with support for the development plan approval, and then we would make the approval at PDA.
Thank you, Chair Moore. At this time, just the comments and the continuation of the project is enough. At the PDA hearing, that's when you would make the development plan and project compatibility analysis findings.
Okay. Anything to add, Ermin?
Chair Moore, thank you. Just to basically confirm what
Christina just said, I do want to let you know that when we come back, or when the project comes back to you for the approval and the development plan approval, we will be also issuing a memo to you with the findings for the development plan approval. So you'll be able to make those at the same time.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll make a motion for continuance back to the full board with general board support for the proposal and the development plan approval at a future date based on the floor plan being updated to address the junction. If we can go back to the plan view. Floor plan view, please. E 200 something. There was a blow up of the area. I think one sheet forward. There we go. Zoom in on the area we were discussing. Yep, right there. So the board requests the applicant restudy the configuration of the new area addition and consider relocating the, would that be the northwest column to be in line with the the grid line 12 location, and to fully enclose the existing tower element. And to continue the roof line across to grid line 12. And integrate the two areas of addition. Is that clear?
That does it, yeah.
It's an awkward explanation, but
why don't you just, I think they all know, Kevin, what we're talking about. Why don't you just leave it to integrate or to eliminate the gap between the two front additions?
Okay, that's probably a more simple way to go about it.
Yeah, they know what we're talking about.
I know, but we need to get it on record so it's clear.
That's good.
Okay, so let's revise that to say the applicant shall study removing the gap between the two proposed additions and which would enclose the tower element.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? No? Okay, let's read that back.
So we have the motion is to continue indefinitely for return to the full board with the following comments. The board is generally supportive of the proposal. The board is supportive of the development plan approval at a future hearing based on the floor plan being updated to address the junction. And the applicant shall study removing the gap between the two proposed additions, which would enclose the tower element.
Okay, is that clear enough for everybody? Yes, okay, let's take our vote.
All right, so we have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Olson,
Yes.
and Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And it appears, so that was, we have one more item to go, item number 5. And that's scheduled to go at 6:30. So we're doing well on time, but unfortunately too early. Start the
Pardon the interruption, Chair Moore. I have contacted the applicant and he would be ready at 6:15 if the board's ready at that time.
Yes. Okay, so let's adjourn until 6:15. last item. Okay, can we get slide up for item 5? There we go. 29 South Milpas Street. This is a review after final approval, which was a remodel of an existing commercial shopping center, facade remodel, new colors, copper gutters, sandstone bases, extended eaves, a new 33-foot tall entry tower, and reallocation of non-residential floor area, demolition of 1,697 square feet mezzanine, and construction of 606 square foot loading dock. Changes to parking lot circulation and configuration, new trash enclosure, new bicycle parking, new landscaping, site lighting, and stormwater management improvements. And we already did the zoning exception and et cetera. Go to slide 2. So this is review after final for alterations to the southern entrance, removal of sandstone veneer at the entrances, removal of a door, changes in location of metal screen walls, and changes to landscaping. Project requires substantial conformance with plans. Granted final approval on July 8th of 2019 and was last year, August 31st of this year, and was referred to the full board at the August 31st hearing, and we're just seeing it now.
Yep.
Okay. I guess we'll invite the applicant on screen here. If you can turn your camera on and introduce yourself and take us through the changes.
Paul Poirier, I'm the architect for the project, and back in August, there were a couple of little minor items that changed during the course of construction. We were working feverishly to get the store open on September 2nd. So we submitted a package to the city mid-August on August 18th. We had a hearing, you said what the date was, I don't even remember when it was, end of August, on consent. And the consent member was unable to give us review after final, so we can get the building finalized off. And he said we had to return back to the full board, and Matt was going to continue us to the full board without any changes. I think you missed quorum the next meeting. He forgot to do it, and then he left. So finally, after a little bit of haranguing on our part, we finally got back on an agenda 3 months later, because you guys have been very busy, and we are just trying to wrap this project up so that we can get our final sign off from the city. So basically, if we can go to the plan, I can tell you what we've done that would change from the original. Some of it was because some materials weren't available, and we saw some other opportunities to hide some ugly things with some of the elements on the building.
So, Paul, before you jump into that, can we go
Yeah.
back to the comments from that? They were on screen briefly. Sorry. So really the only thing was that there was an issue with was the infield revision to the storefront entry and design, as it lacks cohesiveness with the larger facade and the detailing and scaling is imbalanced. Okay. Everything else was acceptable. So are you going to focus on that for us?
Sure. Sounds good.
Perfect.
So if you go to sheet A 3.1, which is the colored elevation. And zoom in on the tower that has the Sprouts sign on it. Okay, so the way that the project was constructed was that we did the work on the outside and another architect from Kansas City did the work on the inside. And we got ahead of them, built all of the exterior improvements, the foundations for the tower, and the whole tower was constructed. And they were still going through plan check on the interior. And when we went to locate the doors, they said, hey, we relocated the doors 3 feet to the east, actually 3'9" to the east. And I said, oh, that's great. It's going to be right behind the column. And I said, dude, you got to be kidding me. We had a frame built. We were just looking to put the frame and cut the hole in the wall. And I got them to concede to move it 3 feet to the west, but I couldn't, just probably on principle, get them to approve the last 9 inches to center it up on the tower. And it would have actually made it so that the storage for the carts would have been almost non-existent. It ran into some ADA bathrooms that were already plumbed and installed in the slab. So as a result, the doorway was not going to be completely perfectly centered on the opening. We had a surround around it made out of the stucco mold that went around. So what we decided to do was to keep everything centered on the door because the arch surround would really make it look lame. So we ran the decorative tile like we have over on the other door that's not perfectly centered either. But unfortunately, we weren't able to rebuild the whole frame that makes the opening a little bit wider so we could accommodate that with a tiny little side light, an 18-inch side light, to pick up the balance of that little spot on the left. So we'd have a transom and a little piece of glass over there, like we did on the other door. So this was the best we could do with the situation we ended up with. These guys not putting the door centered on the tower. And just for giggles, if you ever went to 5 Points, none of the doors are centered on the towers at that shopping center. And the Thrifty's door at this over up at 5 Points also is not centered on the tower. So it's those guys, the big tenants, they don't really care about it. I care about it. It was very upsetting to me that this thing couldn't be perfectly centered, but it's the reality. We had to get this thing open. It's costing the owner some money because we can't get final sign off from the city. And he spent a lot of money to make the place very, very nice. The landscaping changes were limited to sprucing up parts of the landscape that hadn't got picked up in the first round. So we went and spent extra money on other landscaping. The tile over in one section wasn't available. On the little decorative thing we put where Star Photo was, we swapped that out with something that's probably better than the original tile and was available to make our schedule. But that's it. So the consent item person wasn't able to approve it because the door wasn't centered on the tower. And the comment was made that, you know, if you didn't approve it, we should go fight it at city council or something, you know, which seems ridiculous. If you go look at the other tower, you can see that that door isn't centered either to the left. And that's the situation. So there we had advance notice it wasn't going to be centered, so we were able to make the steel frame on the inside of the brick wall a little bit wider. There's also some kind of an interference here where we weren't able to get it centered because of the location, the ending of where the brick wall ended and where some wood frame, metal framing began. So we couldn't have this big flag part of masonry without a little minimum bit of masonry to hold it up, to make it perfectly centered where we wanted it to be. So I guess that concludes my presentation on.
All right. Thank you. All right, let's make sure we open public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address the board regarding this project? You can raise your hand.
Thank you, Chair Moore. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Raise your hand on your GoToWebinar control panel. At this time, I don't see anybody that would like to speak on this item. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna assume that Mary said that nobody.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I just said that no written public comment was received for this item. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we're doing questions now. So, who has questions? Richard, go ahead.
So Paul, is this, what we see in front of us already built with the tile installed and, as noted here? It's already built?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? David, you have a question?
Not for me, thank you.
Okay. Dennis?
Yes, could you zoom in on the Sprouts Tower, please? Just one small question about the note. On the left-hand side of the door assembly appears to be a different material that's identified. What is on the left side of the door, Paul? Yes.
It's hard to, it's hard to see, but there's actually a surround, it's approximately 18 inches that goes all the way up over the door and down the other side. And the area above the door is infilled with a Arto tile that is running on the left side of the door as well.
But only on the left, all right. I think that's a rather neat way of solving the problem, making it symmetrical while being asymmetrical. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, let's go to comments. Richard, comments?
I think that, Paul should put the name of his firm, in this little area so you can identify where the screw ups were.
Oh, jeez.
Ow.
Ouch.
I would get us out of the way and let this happen.
Okay, David?
It's not significant at all.
I agree.
Dennis?
No further comments. I couldn't possibly add to that.
Yeah, I think it's just an unfortunate situation that has occurred. Yeah, but I will forever, whenever I walk into Sprouts, I will forever look at this. Okay. Go ahead.
I move for approval as submitted.
Second.
I will.
Seconded by Mr. Black. Any other discussion? No? Okay, let's take the vote.
All right, this is Mary. I will go ahead and take the roll call vote. We have Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes, as well.
Board Member Olson. I believe he recused himself, and
Correct.
Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. See you next time.
All right, and with that, we can, I guess, do we need to announce the appeal period?
Yes, Mr. Chair, board members, I apologize for the interruption. This is just a general announcement. Any projects that received project design approval or final approval or review after final have a 10-day appeal period. Just want to note that for the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and with that, we can close our agenda for this evening. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, James.